oftentimes men, especially men who have wives and children, they want to be very prideful. And so they're masking their insecurities and inadequacies, and they don't feel that they actually need help. So at first, they need to be willing to be humble, look in the mirror and say, I just don't know.
Today on Journey to Legacy, I interview Mr. Jesse Carstairs, a men's relationship coach. Jesse has an interesting perspective that he believes that society and most parents aren't teaching men, how to be the ultimate masculine man. And I absolutely agree with him. In today's interview, he gives really interesting insights. It's geared in my mind mostly towards men, but he actually shared with me that it's something like 82 or 85% of his audience on social media is women, right? It's women that actually agree with his perspectives and then bring his teachings or his videos to their husband or boyfriend, partner, and that's how men find him to get relationship coaching. And so, all that to say is that this episode is really for everybody. Jesse is a great speaker. He is very thoughtful, and so the pace of today's interview is a little bit slower. It's because Jesse is very particular with his words, and you can tell he's been doing this for a long time. Enjoy today's interview with our men's relationship coach, Mr. Jesse Carstairs. Jesse, thanks for being here, my friend. Kick us off. Please tell everybody just a little bit about yourself.
I am a proud college dropout. Went into the sports industry, met with some friends where we were investing in Chinese athletes, bringing them to the United States. Really fun endeavor. And then, met my wife. We were dating, and, dating is fun, right?
Yeah.
Dating is a lot of fun. She got pregnant, and then it was like, I'm going to be a father. I have to figure out more about my life and what it means to be good at being a man. Because then shortly after him coming into this world, there was times where she would be nagging. She would be full of all these emotions, and I'm not a very emotional guy. So I just wanted to change her, have her be like me. And then I realized I don't want to date myself. I just need to work on me and change me. And that's kind of how I ended up being a men's relationship coach. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. I love how you start with a proud college dropout,
Yeah.
um, and then decided to go into investing into Chinese athletes.
Yeah. We were doing the Yao Ming effect.
The Yao Ming effect. What do you mean? Explain to
Yeah.
me.
So Yao Ming was not popular in China until he
Mm.
came to the United States and made it in the NBA.
Oh, interesting.
And then he became the most popular Chinese citizen.
Mm.
So we were
Okay.
bringing over Chinese Olympians, silver
Nice.
medalists. Yeah, so people from their Olympic team over here to turn professional.
Nice. And then with the hopes of then them becoming even more popular back in China.
Yeah, because at the time that we were doing this, Macau was actually doing three times the revenue as Las Vegas, which a lot of people didn't know. Yeah, that Macau was just crushing Vegas as far as revenue went.
Sorry, Macau. What is Macau?
Macau is a city in China. It's kind of like
Okay.
an island off mainland China that
Uh-huh.
is their Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, big casinos, etc. Not far from
Huge.
Singapore. So they were doing three times the revenue in their casino industry than the Las Vegas casino industry.
Oh, okay. And so
And
what
with
was like the play? Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
so with the casino revenue, you want to provide entertainment. you have big fights like Canelo Alvarez, Floyd Mayweather fighting in Vegas, John Jones, GSP, Conor McGregor fighting in Vegas, right? Big revenue entertainment.
Mm, mm.
Macau obviously wants the same thing. How do we provide entertainment, whether it's singers, boxing, etc.? Um, so the end goal was to go back or sell TV rights, television rights to sports athletes who are competing in the United States, to the Asian markets or Chinese markets.
Interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
bring the athletes over, get them to go pro in the US with
Hmm.
the idea was then they could go back potentially to China and provide entertainment,
Yeah.
or you sell
Or
those
even,
TV rights.
yep. Yeah.
Well, interesting. I mean, Jesse, so I mean, in college, it sounds like you were already almost always entrepreneurial minded. Like, where did this come from?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my mom gave me a book, I think in middle school called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
And when I was in third grade, and you got to think about how much $500 is for a bicycle today. When I was in third grade, I mowed lawns and bought a $500 Gary Fisher, which was
Sweet.
like a BMX bike.
Yeah.
Okay. It was like, at the time, it was like the BMX bike of BMX bikes. And when you can buy a Trek for a kid for like 750, a solid Trek with suspension, it's like, man, $500 back then was seems like a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was mowing lawns in elementary school. So it was always ingrained in me. My mom got me this book that she heard on the radio about Rich Dad Poor Dad. So the entrepreneurial spirit has been in me since day one. I only went to college because my dad told me if I don't go to college and play football, you have to at least go to college for something or you can move out and get a job. So I was like,
Sure.
well, why would I move out and get a job? I'm going to go to college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Were your parents entrepreneurs as well? Or like you said your mom heard this on the radio. I mean, they must have been inclined to that direction as well, or not?
My parents, my dad slightly, he started a business in the field that he was in after being in the field. We'll just say like 20 years he was in this field. And then him and some of the partners from there started the same business. Um, but then he sold after however many years. He always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but both of my parents were the type of people who had genuine belief and support in their kids. Because a lot of parents will tell you, like, oh, yeah, you can be an astronaut. But little Johnny, how about you have a backup plan? Like maybe you try to go to school and be a dentist, or, I think majority of parents, they bullshit their kids. My parents was very blessed in the fact that they wholeheartedly believed in what me and my sister could do.
So they had the genuine support for you all, right? They
Hmm.
weren't
Yeah.
just floating your boats of go be an astronaut, but have a backup. Um,
They were
which
like,
is
let's go all in. How can we help? Like, what's the plan? Like, let's do this. And I feel completely lucky because I saw whether it was girlfriends, my wife's family, or other buddies' parents, they were just bullshitting their kids. Like, no, you guys, you can't do that.
wow, wow,
Mhm.
super fortunate. See, I mean, it sounds like that's a
Yeah,
big
very
reason
fortunate.
for where you are today. I mean, so now that you're doing relationship coaching, is this something directly that you pull from that like you actually share today with the men's groups that you lead?
Most of the stuff that I pull from is really the struggles of the 14-year relationship with my wife. That's what not 14 years of struggle, but all
Right.
that time and overcoming those obstacles versus the business side of things. I'm sure there's a correlation, and you could probably ask my wife, and she would say that there's a correlation um, between the two. And
Sure.
maybe it's why I think different also is because of entrepreneur background, because I will approach the relationship or I approach parenting a whole lot different than traditional. relationship and parenting.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely takes, we shape our current experiences based on what our entire lives have, what we've been through, right? And I think it's a
Completely
big
agree.
piece of the show of
Yeah.
why I try and tell holistic stories here. But before we dive any deeper, tell us just more specifically about the coaching, who you're helping, what exactly you're working on today.
So specifically men and men of faith who are failing to lead the family because men feel that you can just be a provider, which means bring home a paycheck and then your job is done. But you're going to have a paycheck regardless if you have a wife or children. So by definition, you're just a worker. Okay. So your role as a husband or father is so much more than this provider, all the way from do you have the emotional intelligence to not only for yourself, but for your wife to where she feels safe and secure emotionally? It's one thing for a woman to feel safe around a man physically, but uh, it's another thing for her to feel safe around you emotionally. Okay. And then most men are not actually taught by their fathers what it means to be good at being a man.
Mm,
So we just send men off into the world and expect some magic fairy dust to go on them, and then they'll be a man one day. I'll ask men, what does it mean to be a man? And they'll say, responsibilities. It's like, okay, I have an 8-year-old son. He has responsibilities. Sometimes he gets those done without us ever asking. Does that make him a man? Okay, no. How about a man who is married with kids and pays all his own bills? Okay. There's a lot of men who pay their own bills who are
mm,
married with kids and are shitty husbands who are
mm,
not involved with the discipling or raising of their children. So, does that make you a man?
mm,
At least it doesn't make you good at being a man.
mm.
It's kind of the quickest version.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, well, so immediately, let me ask you, Jesse, what does it mean to be a man?
So, I think I want to touch on what it means to be good at being a man.
Perfect.
And to me, the definition of masculinity and the term, what does it mean to be good at being a man, are going to
Mm,
be the same. So I'm going to give you my definition of what a masculine man is, because he is a man who's good at being a man. So masculine man transcends time. It's not a social construct. So it doesn't matter if it's a masculine man today, during the Oregon Trail, or 10,000 years ago, or the zombie apocalypse of tomorrow. He has to be, he has to have strength, both physical, mental, and emotional strength
mm,
because we don't need a man in our tribe who is emotionally distraught, who's quick to anger, because then you're going to make bad choices, right? If you don't have mental strength. He has to be a man who is continuously leveling up in all aspects, working on himself, because then you're going to be stagnant in that tribe. Okay. We don't need stagnant. The reason why society has gotten to where it is because men working collectively together to go from the wheel to welding metal, continuously pushing. Now we drive cars. Men used to think they wanted faster horses,
yeah.
and now we have cars that drive themselves because men were continuously pushing one another and trying to push the boundaries. So are they leveling up? Are you a man of honor and integrity? You say you're going to do something, do you do that? Are you
Mm,
trustworthy? If we look at the time of knights, if a knight lied, it was considered treason. How many
mm,
men actually like keep their word these days? Say, do what they're going to say. So, a masculine man is a man who's desired by other men to be in their tribe when that zombie apocalypse happens. And it doesn't always have to be just because of the physical attributes. It's like, what value do they bring to the table? Do they have engineering experiences so we can create a home and then next thing you know we create a castle because of the way that their mind works, but they're also not like mentally flustered if you're going to be invaded by another tribe.
sure.
How do you as men, again, here's the part where women and children come into play for a masculine man. Are you able to allow a woman to be in her most feminine when there
Mm,
are men on horseback on the ridge who want to invade, because you are so calm, cool, and collective that the children can be free at play and the women do not have elevated cortisol levels. Therefore, they want to continue to breed because they don't feel that they're in a fight or flight mode. They feel safe and secure with the band of men who they're with. And that should apply in every era throughout history and in the future.
Nice. Yeah, that transcending of time. Actually, I
Mhm.
love that. And this thought of the masculine man being one that is desired into your tribe,
Mhm.
right? And you used this example or analogy of the engineer, right? But it's not just an engineer that, if that's all that they are, right? It is this holistic picture. You said
Mhm.
physical, mental, emotional. They're continuously leveling themselves up. They're trustworthy.
Mhm.
Where did I mean? So you explained a little bit about, sort of your path, right? College dropout, to sports investing, to Chinese athletes, which I'm curious about. Of course, you're dating your wife. She fell pregnant. Where is this in between of where you learned how the ideal masculine man should be? And then, of course, I assume how you worked on yourself and are continuously working on yourself to become it. Like, what happened in this middle piece?
There's where do I start? So it really happened when my wife got pregnant that it's like I was just acting as a child amongst my other friends, and we were in our mid 20s just chasing girls, is we were just doing childish behavior as full-grown adults because there's in society we don't have men discipling men on what it is to be good at being a man. Okay, so when you're a young male and then you're running around with other young males and you have one thing on mind, which is instant gratification, there is no graduating to manhood in that process. We collectively as men think that what we're doing is the right path because it's what the other young pups around us are doing. And then you get in a serious relationship and have to take on responsibilities. And that's where the nagging comes in, the emotions come in. And it's because we don't know how to step up and lead. Yes, the bills are paid, we have our own house, etc. And it's like, what more do you want? Because we don't know any better.
Mm.
And I was like, this, and the only reason the women nag is because they want to push us to our potential and they don't feel safe and secure. So they're trying to get us into that place where they can feel safe and secure. Because no man on earth goes out one day and is like, you know what? I just want to marry the most nagging woman there is. It's just not how they are wired. They don't do that.
No.
Um, so I wanted to figure this out because so here's a missing loop to this story that you'll probably enjoy is my biological father killed himself when I was about 2. And then so my dad, all growing up, who's still my dad, who's been with my mom for 30 something years,
Mm.
he wasn't able to parent me how he would have liked because my mom was so protective of me because my dad killed himself. So I wasn't able to be, you could say, discipled as best as he had the ability to, because again, he grew up without a father. But there was something that he said to me when I was probably like in third grade that really hammered home is that down the road, there was this couple screaming and fighting. They didn't live on our street. They were just like got out of their car and they're screaming. And it's in the middle of the day. And my dad says there's nothing manly about a man who tries to intimidate a woman physically and yelled at her like that.
Mm.
And my dad was a man's man back. He was a construction worker, big dude, very intimidating. My mom used to tell me stories of him handling business at concerts, etc. And when he said that, that has stuck with me ever since. So it was like, how do I connect all these like dots over the years and what does it look like to be a man? because I had a son that I was responsible for. And then eventually I was going to marry his mom because she was still my girlfriend. We didn't get married till like he was 4.
Man. What an interesting example. I think this is great that your dad, I mean, what a tough thing to happen at such an early age that your biological dad, right, kills himself and then of course causing your mom to be protective over you. But what a cool example that your dad sets that right, he is this big, tough, strong, manly man. And then yet he tells you directly that essentially what you see in front of you, right, is to not be used to intimidate a woman, right?
Hmm.
To yell at her, to threaten her, anything like that. And so, I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised that that has stuck with you so much, right? And like that is a huge piece. I mean, that sort of goes into all three of the aspects of physical, mental, and emotional, huh?
Hmm. Yeah.
Man. And let me ask you this. So you kind of got thrown into this. You had to realize, I'm being a child, right? Now I have more responsibilities. I need to figure out how to become, I'm going to say, like the ultimate man. It's like for other people out there that are watching, for men out there, right, that aren't in such dire situations, I want to say, but like where's the best place for them to start in changing their ways?
I think they have to look in the mirror, be humble, and be honest with themselves that they don't know. Because oftentimes men, especially men who have wives and children,
Mm,
they want to be very prideful. And so they're masking their insecurities and inadequacies, and they don't feel that they actually need help. So at first they need to be willing to be humble, look in the mirror and say, I just don't know. Because I tell Instagram gets a bad rap, right? I'm going to tie this in. But I tell people the marriage that me and my wife have is that thing you see on Instagram. It's very real. The fairy tale movies, my wife and I have that now, and it's very real. It was fucking hard to get there. And it was not like any of that early on. The first half was not like that at all by any means. But if you're willing to be humble and put in the work and find men who know what they're doing, because anyone listening has been on a date with another couple, and this works better if you're with another couple where you can tell if they have really good energy and you want to be
mm,
around them. If you get invited to their house for dinner, it's like, man, we don't want to go over there again. Or it's like, man, I feel like such a peace at their house. It's like that's because they understand their complementary roles as husband and wife, their masculine and feminine roles, because we complement one another. So if you're not humble, if you don't look in the mirror, it's going to be rough.
wow. Yeah, I mean, starting with humility, right? Starting with understanding that you have room to improve and going to ask for help
Hmm.
is so important. I mean, what about I think personally everybody needs coaching, needs to
Yep.
be bettering and improving themselves. I don't know if are there like signs that someone might be able to see, realize in themselves that it's like, okay, you know what? No, now this is a clear sign that I do need help, that I need to humble myself and go start working to better myself. Like, what do you think? Are there some signs that like I'm just trying to be as actionable as possible for people that are listening?
Yeah. I mean, is your wife constantly stressed? Is she nagging? Again, women don't nag for fun. They nag out of survival. Even if a woman's listening to this, if she really takes a step back and thinks about why she's nagging it, she'll say, well, it's because he doesn't, I've asked him to do this and he doesn't do it. And it's like, but what else do you want out of that? Because it's not the fact that he doesn't pick up his shoes. It's like that's just like the tipping point, right? It's like, what else have we been trying to get him to do? Is the wife the one who is discipling the children, raising the children, and they're 9, 10, and 11? and he's not the one who's taking on that responsibility. It's like there's a lot of signs. Like, do you and your wife not have sex multiple times a week? Because cortisol is a stress hormone. And if your wife's filled with cortisol, she's not going to want to feel reproductive. She's not going to want to breed with you. Okay. It's like, do you feel that you're stuck in a rut? Do you not feel respected? How many men don't feel respected? It's like there's a lot of signs out there that your relationship is not optimal.
Nice. Nice. I want everybody to go rewind back. Like those are actually very interesting tips. Even just the first one of like, is your significant other complaining and nagging, right? You just said it's not about him not picking up his shoes. It's like,
Mhm,
well, he doesn't have in my mind, doesn't have the emotional intelligence or the respect
mhm,
to realize like this is a basic thing that causes stress and frustration to my partner. So let me be forward thinking and thoughtful towards the other person, put
mhm.
myself in their shoes, and thus pick those up, right? Which is now causing to show a lack of responsibility, which is now going to be a lack of trust. And it's like, can he raise my kids to not be this way? Now I have this whole question mark in my mind, and it's just like a stem of problems, right? It's not about the shoes, it's about everything that it means, huh?
Yeah. And men will say like, I did the dishes and like we still didn't have sex. Clean the kitchen. And it's like, because that's probably not one of her emotional triggers.
Mm.
Like you're missing the thing. She doesn't care about the dishes because it's not an emotional trigger. It's like you're gonna have to figure out what her emotional triggers are, the things that don't allow her to feel safe and secure. Maybe it's how she thinks her kids are being raised, that she's not doing a good enough job, but you're not even aware of these things. You know, maybe it's there's some sort of trigger from when she was a kid in regards to finances or even just like food um, in the refrigerator because it's
Mm.
something that happened when she was a kid, growing up poor and like there wasn't food, emotional trigger. And you just communicating, hey, babe, I get paid tomorrow and you're going to do a Costco run or I'll do the Costco run. Like, not the fact that you didn't do the dishes or you didn't pick up the stuff. Like, what are her true emotional triggers? And like,
Um,
this is where the emotional intelligence comes. It's like we have to understand when even the slightest bit of anxiety starts to rise in our spouse and how we can be there to support her and allow her to feel emotionally safe and understanding what those triggers are so we can put out any little fire before it ever actually starts to really catch. And it's our
mm.
job.
I totally agree. I mean, it can be tough, right? Uh, Jesse, define for us what emotional intelligence is.
So oftentimes, men will be like, I don't get flustered. I don't get upset. I'm not quick to anger. I have emotional intelligence. It's like that's great for yourself. But emotional intelligence is truly understanding where your wife is at all points with her emotions, though, too. And then for an example, I have two sons. They look like copy and paste. Everyone's like, oh, they look twins, even though they're X amount of years apart. They're completely different. Their emotional triggers are completely different. But let's go back to the spouse because the spouse is the one who's going to be with you forever. Your children are going to leave the nest. I have to understand, kind of bring it back to what I was already saying. What is going to create anxiety in her to allow her to not feel emotionally safe? So, do I even know what her top three emotional triggers are? Do I even know what the top three things where she feels most safe and secure? Some of them may surprise you. One of my wife's top three where she feels most safe and secure is when she's meditating with her red light mask on. She looks like like the bad guy from Mount Zion or Doom from one of those movies with the red glowing mask out of the eyes. But it's where she feels most safe and secure. That's one of them. But the triggers is what we need to understand so we can see it coming. It's that example of, maybe your wife grew up. poor and she does not like if the refrigerator's empty. And you could maybe have all the cash in the bank, but it's that thing that's going to start to build anxiety in her. You're going to need to be aware of that. And then when she picks a fight later, it'll be something completely different because it's just the tipping point. And you're going to have to learn to peel back the layers and understand that this isn't what you're really upset about. So
Mm.
let's like get to this root problem. And it's like, I'm a stay-at-home mom or I'm working 50 hours a week. I don't have time to go to the grocery store. It's normally something you handle. Can you please do this? But that's not what she's going to start the fight about because that's what started it and that's the trigger. And you're going to get the fight about the tipping point. And maybe it was like a lack of communication in regards to one of your kids' things. And you're like, you're making a big deal out of nothing. And it's like, well, how about because 2 days ago, when she looked in the fridge and just realized, and this is something that has to do with her as a child, and you're not aware of it. It's your job to be aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, right? I think this is a big piece that for men, like it's a lot, but it's like I said, it is our job to be aware of it. And so your definition of emotional intelligence, right? It's not just us understanding our own emotions.
Mhm.
Even what you said, right? The guy says like, "Oh, well, I don't get angry, like I don't get upset, like I'm in control of my emotions." I would make the argument that you don't have complete emotional intelligence if you're not able to get upset, if you're not able to get angry or sad and understand those emotions, and then of course not let yourself be triggered, but feel emotions, understand them, and then be able to pivot out of them. But the
Yeah,
bigger
so the
piece, go ahead. No, give me a thought.
No, I want to touch on that because I've always been someone who, it's like I'm not going to get emotionally rattled, but emotions are good. And
Yeah.
I think what you're bringing up is that the people who just completely disregard all of their emotions. It's like, no, emotions are good. I am filled with emotions every time my wife turns the corner, walks in the room. I'm like, oh, I get excited. My son does something awesome. My son gets his ass kicked at wrestling. Different emotions, right? We were like,
Yeah.
man, that little shit, and now he's talking crap to my son. We have different emotions. They're good and bad emotions, but it's what we allow them to do to us and control our actions. Do they control our actions? Or like you said, do we pivot? Do we understand them, realize what's going on? Why is this making me feel this way? Because emotions does not mean something is right, and it does not mean something's wrong. And it's something that more men need to talk about, but we can't let the emotions dictate our judgment as well.
Nice.
But yeah,
Nice.
I think you were going into talking about how do we support our spouse.
Uh, yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. But let me just reiterate that again because everyone needs to hear it, right? Don't let your emotions dictate your actions, right? Be
Mhm.
under control of them, feel them, understand them, and then take action and charge appropriately. And so, yes, now I understand what emotional intelligence is, right? And so now for our spouse, right? You talked about how important it is for us to understand their triggers, right? Also understand what makes them feel safe and secure, but their triggers
Mhm.
specifically. How do we do that? Where do we start to learn those triggers?
Here's what I tell people. It's really easy. Grab her hand, go on a walk. Nice peaceful walk with just you guys. And I would start with asking what makes her feel the most safe and secure. Find those. Not just diving into like, what are your emotional triggers? Where do you feel least safe and secure? Start with what makes her feel the most safe and secure. Because again, you might be surprised. I was surprised about my wife's meditation one with her red light mask. I
Mm.
was like, huh, I never thought about that. But then stepping back, I'm like, that makes sense. She's at total peace. None of my boys interrupt her when she's doing that. The dog doesn't interrupt her. I don't. It's just like mom needs her time. She's over in her little workout area, office space, has her time. So figure out where she feels most safe and secure. And then if it's a good ongoing conversation, continue at holding hands, that oxytocin, that physical touch, really important. You want her to feel safe and secure talking about these things. And then you can go into might be three that where you feel the least safe and secure? Or just give me like one or two. And if the first three already go really well, she's going to tell you those other ones. And if you guys are in a really good place, do not you hold on. The men cannot get offended because it might be you. The ones where she feels most safe might have nothing to do with you. You could be 6'4" and absolutely jacked, and she might not even mention, oh, just in your arms walking down the street, I feel the most safe. She might not mention that. And that could be your identity. So whatever she says, you cannot take it personal because then
Mhm.
you're just not going to allow her to feel emotionally safe.
You're making it about yourself, right?
You're
No, the
making
whole
it about
point is
you.
make it about them.
Exactly. So when she tells you the ones that she feels least safe, you're going to have to figure out how do we now allow the safest and the least safe to complement one another? How do you pick up on these triggers before they get there? And it's just conversations. Like we don't communicate enough, especially in the beginning of relationships. We want to talk about things in the moment when they're happening. How do you want to raise a kid? Do you want to get our kids vaccinated? Do you not want to? Do you want to homeschool? Do you not want to? When you had a kid, that's when you're talking about those things instead of in the beginning. So let's even talk about these emotional things. Like if you're dating a girl, if you're courting her, see what makes her feel the most safe and secure.
Yeah.
Like if the woman's not willing to talk about it, move on.
Mm. Nice.
And vice versa, women, ladies. If he's not willing to talk about it, he's not ready.
Yeah, I totally agree. He needs to start doing a lot of work on himself.
Yeah.
But what a
Yeah.
great tip here, right? It's to start with actually what makes you feel safe and secure, right? In that,
Mhm.
it's going to then put them in that state of mind of thinking about safety, thinking
Yeah.
about security. And now they're going to be more willing and open to share about these potential triggers because they feel safe and secure, right? They're sort of
Yeah.
ready to share. Jesse, you have some different programs or things going on, right? And so before we dive into talking about legacy, what's great ways for men to actually be able to take action and learn a little bit more from you?
I mean, I run a school community for men, men of faith. We do 4 Zoom calls a week. We do one every Monday called Mastering Manhood. We do a Bible study one for men. Anyone who wants to join the Bible study, just for the Bible study, can join that completely free. We do a Thursday call on how to become a high value man. We talk about chivalry and why chivalry is not dead and the concept of chivalry and what that means. Saturday mornings, we do one called family leadership. And we'll be adding even more calls in. Men need men to forge thoughts and masculinity amongst one another. It kind of goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. Men had men at one point, a band, a tribe, a gang, whatever you
Yeah,
want to call
yeah,
it. And we continually test our skills against one another. We would push one another. There's a reason why it's called like the Wright brothers. They were continuously working on how do we fly. It wasn't just a single guy. If you look at anyone who accomplished anything, it was not by himself. What is it? The
nice.
PayPal mafia? Think about the PayPal mafia. Like bring it to modern day. Are you familiar with PayPal mafia?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously familiar with PayPal.
Yeah. If you look at the PayPal mafia, it was Peter Thiel, David Sachs, Elon, the founders of YouTube were on there. It was all these guys involved in PayPal went on to all make hundreds of millions and billions of dollars outside of PayPal with other ventures. Yeah, and there was I think 11 of them or seven. It was a large. It wasn't just four guys. It wasn't just Elon, David Sachs, Peter Thiel, the founders of YouTube. There was a bunch of them. And it just goes to show that you need a tribe of men amongst one another to do great things.
Nice. I
So that's
totally
what we're
agree.
trying to cultivate. Yeah, that's what we're trying to cultivate. We got surgeons in there. We have um, entrepreneurs, guys who own medical device companies, Yeah, we have sheriffs, a lot of different people. We have an actor in there, who at 31, he's like, I was not taught how to be a man. My dad was wealthy. He was a business professional and have
Mm.
no clue. I'm the most passive, nice guy that there is. And he's like, my dad was extremely aggressive. So it's
Wow.
like there's a lot of men in different walks of life in that community. It's called High
Yes.
Value Life. You can either search my name in school, SKOOL, or search High Value Life.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to link to it down below also. I mean, that's such a great place to start. A great place, even if you're not just getting started, right? Surround
Yeah.
yourself with more high value men or men that are working on themselves. That's where I
Yes.
find is the number one piece of the puzzle. Journey to legacy, something I don't share very, very often, is where I came to the realization that there is no finish line. And it's something that I can share with you, I believe. I don't think I can share it with very many people because it's tough to grasp, but
Mhm.
it's about the never-ending journey of bettering ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think that's a lot of like, I believe these are sort of your values as well, right? Like, there's no way that you can stay a masculine, the ultimate man, if you believe you've reached the finish line, right? When you stop working on yourself, you're going to lose it.
No, there is no finish line. And this is coming
Beautiful.
from a man of faith, someone who is biblical might argue against it, but I can tell you that there's nothing biblical about being complacent. Now, what our identity is should be in something that can never be stripped from us, which like my identity is just I'm a follower of Christ, and then you can use words like honor, integrity, because no man can take those away from you. But how
Yes.
am I continuously improving myself to really honor the kingdom for my community, my family? Because there have been psychological studies that if you improve your life just 10%, those who live with you by default improve theirs by three. And these are human studies. So why would we not continue to level up in every aspect and hire coaches? You brought up coaches, and I haven't been able to touch on that. I hire coaches. I want a business coach. I have a strength coach. At one point, I had a social media coach to teach me about social media because at one point I did not care about social media. Like, there's no reason why we shouldn't have coaches in all aspects of life. Tony Robbins, of all people, has multiple coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the arguably best coach in the world has coaches,
Yeah.
I think that that goes to show enough that we absolutely
Mhm.
need it. What a fun fact there as well, that if you improve yourself by 10%, the others around you might default improve around 3%.
Mhm.
Just goes to show, right? Like, let's work on ourselves.
Yeah. And it goes to show if you are stagnant and those around you are not working, they're going to pull you the opposite way.
The opposite way, no doubt about it. Jesse, I love that. I love that mindset. I appreciate you sharing it so much. And I always like to wrap up with the theme of the show being around legacy. And I like to ask my guests, first off, what does legacy mean to you? And then what is the legacy that you're working to leave on this world?
In my opinion, the only legacy you can leave is that your last name and how your children represent it. Because you can donate $20 million to the local university and it'll say, it could say Jesse Carstairs. But if my children are on the news for their fifth DUI and going to prison, people are going to remember the news versus the name on that building when they hear it. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, his kids turned out to be those guys. So, how am I leading by example, though, in everything I do for my children? How am I in it? You should love your wife more than your children. So, how am I loving my wife in such a way that they understand what that looks like and how they should treat a woman? And then they can do that same example for their children, my grandchildren, etc. And how do I teach them to be good at being a man intentionally with literally a plan? Really quick. Knights, they went through a phase called being a page and then a squire, and then they graduated knighthood. In the United States, we do nothing of the sort. Yeah, we don't parent with intent.
Intent is so important, man, in every
Mhm.
aspect of life, right? Parenting with intent. I mean, intentionally working on ourselves to be a better man. That's interesting. The knights, right? Went from being what? Page,
A
squire,
page, yeah.
squire, and
And
then a knight.
you actually had a mentor who would pull you along. So at 7 or 8, you became a page and you had a mentor. Then when you graduated to being a squire around 13, your mentor was a knight. And they taught you all about chivalry, which is being a man of your
Mm,
word.
mm,
There's parts where you learn to fight with weapons. How do you be a servant of other people? If there was a lady carrying groceries, like how do you service her? I will help you,
mm.
you know? But keeping your word was, if you broke it, it was considered treason. It's like, I think I might have already said that, but
Yeah, that's great, though. I
yeah.
love that. Man, it's how it should be. Jesse, thank you for the example that you're setting, not just to your sons and your wife, right? Just the legacy you're trying to leave, but to so many men, everybody that listens to this show also. I mean, that's what I believe it's all about. It's helping others, leaving the world in a better place. And so, in case nobody has told you this recently, thank you so much for everything that you do. It's greatly appreciated.
Hey man, I thank you for having me on.
And that's a wrap, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. Please, on social, on a comment, let us know what your thoughts are, your biggest takeaways. For me, Jesse talking about emotional intelligence, that is so important, right? It's not just understanding our own emotions, but it's being able to understand others' emotions as well, right? A lot of it is like just being thoughtful. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Man, his definition of what it is to truly be a man, a masculine man, right? He says it doesn't, or it does transcend time, right? 10,000 years ago is pretty similar to what it is today. And thinking in that sense of who do you need to be accepted into a tribe or to be desired to come into a tribe? You need to be physically, mentally, emotionally strong. You need to be continuously leveling yourself up. You have to be trustworthy, all these things. And what a great tip as well is that if you want to start to improve yourself, level yourself up, start with humility, right? Admit that you need help, that you need to better yourself always. I shared with Jesse, I think after the interview, maybe it was during it actually. I shared with him that in Journey to Legacy, my true belief is that there is no finish line, right? It is all about the journey, never-ending journey of self-improvement, of bettering ourselves so that we can better others, right? He shared the fact that if you improve yourself by 10%, the people around you automatically improve by 3%. And so do yourself a favor, do all those around you a favor, work on bettering yourself starting today. If you all need help doing that, I want to invite you to come visit us over at journeytolegacy.org. We're a community of like-minded individuals working to improve ourselves mentally, physically, and financially every week, every day, right? Come get some support and accountability and help yourself and help others and leave a meaningful legacy on this world. Until next time, my name is Wayne Veldsman, and you've been listening to the Journey to Legacy podcast.